Hi, it's Mary White again from my friends at the West Seattle Thriftway. And today, welcome to Pie World. Again, it's that time of year, you know, when you start cooking more and you're baking and you're doing stuff. And I don't know about you guys, but I have a love affair with pie that just won't quit. And I actually had to quit making pie several years ago because I can't be trusted. Me alone in a house with pie, it gets ugly. But I've been testing recipes because I really wanted to get the exact perfect crust, okay? And I think this is the one you're gonna like. Super simple if you follow these steps. Okay, so first of all, we're making a pie crust. I like to use whole wheat pastry flour. It's a little bit browner, but it's a little bit better for you. You don't have to feel quite so guilty if you eat the whole thing. 2 cups of flour, a little bit of salt, okay? And then you dump in 1/3 cup of butter and 1/3 cup of lard. Now the reason I like lard, primarily because my mom always used it and it makes a beautifully flaky crust. Also the great thing about lard is it can just sit. Doesn't need to be refrigerated, none of that stuff. It's just lard. And you know, fat is fat. I mean, don't be scared of lard because it's lard. I would rather you use this than anything hydrogenated. Lard, butter, whatever works for you. The point is you want a flaky crust, and you're gonna get a flaky crust with cold. So you mix in your fats, and I'll do that for you here in a second. And then when you mix in the water, make sure the water is very cold. But how it's gonna get really cold is after you mix this up into a nice ball, you're gonna put it in the fridge for at least 2 hours. Well, okay, 1 is enough, 2 is better. The longer the better, really. Because what happens with the fat, the reason you get flakes in your pie crust is because this fat and this flour, they get all mixed together. And then when it's cold, the fat solidifies again. And then when you bake it, it goes poof, and you get flaky crust. So I'm gonna mix this in and make a big mess. So I've used forks before, I've used my hands before. I like to start with a pastry blender. I got this one, of course, at the Thriftway. And you know, I have to tell you guys, this is the same one that they had at the fancy French kitchen store. This one was a lot more affordable. But you can do this for a while. You want to get that fat evenly distributed in the flour till it's about pea-sized lumps. And then you're going to put it into a ball in the wax paper, and then you're going to refrigerate it. So I've added a little bit of water, cold water, 1/3 cup, and we're just going to work this with our hands because sometimes your hands are the best thing until it forms those pea-sized lumps. And you can tell already that it's coming together. But again, I loved when I was testing these, I loved the flavor of the butter with the flakiness of the lard. So 1/3 cup of butter, 1/3 cup of lard, 1/3 cup of water, and look, it's almost it. See how it's putting it, making it, see how it's coming together? So once it does that, you can just put it in the fridge and hang on to it for a couple hours. And then we'll come back and roll it out. So our pie crust has been chilling for a couple of hours. And you know, I roll old school. I love the wax paper. And this is what it looks like. When I put it in the fridge, I kind of pat it out so it's easier to roll when we get to the rolling stage, okay? So this is where it gets really fun. You need to put a little flour on your board so the pie crust doesn't stick, of course. And this is where the really cool stuff comes in. I tell you guys, at the Thriftway, they have everything in that housewares department that you would spend a lot more on elsewhere, you know what I'm saying? So, I got this. Look how cool this is. Housewares, ta-da! But the thing about pie baking is, you know, the pie crust itself is very easy, but you have to be careful of like the crust bubbling up or the crust getting burned, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff will help you. They have these pie weights, which keep the crust from coming up. You can use this chain. You can use this thing, which is really cool. It keeps the crust flat, okay? Now, once we get the pie crust in there, you want to maybe protect the crust if you're baking, you know, for a long time. So we have shields. Mrs. Anderson's shields. There's another Mrs. Anderson shield. I mean, there's just some good stuff here that'll help you really make a delicious pie crust. So I'm going to use this really, really cool thing. And you just start rolling it out. Now, it's going to be a little tough at first because it is cold from the fridge. But remember, you need that cold to get a flaky, flaky crust. When that cold fat dissolves in the oven, it just puffs up and makes things wonderful. So, now you might wonder too why this is such a dark brown color, but again, you know, I'm an old hippie and I really like whole wheat, so this is a whole wheat crust. Whole wheat crusts are going to be better like for maybe a quiche or a vegetable pie, or you know, something that isn't quite so light and delicate. If you're going to use if you're making a pumpkin pie or a custard pie, you might want to use it just, you know, regular flour, maybe put a little sugar in there. Oh, but you see how nicely this is rolling out? It's because of this awesome pie roller thingy. So we're almost ready to put this in the pie pan. So this is pretty much the way I want it. Looks pretty good. And the easy way to get this into your pie pan is fold it in half and then just lift it up. Ta-da! Do like that. And then like this. Oh my God, it's pie. Now this is actually enough crust for 2 pies. I just wanted to show you guys, you know, how it's done. But you know, you fit it into the pan like that. And then you can get all creative with your crust around the edge. So you want to trim the crust, just kind of use the, you know, the side of the pie pan as a template and just trim off the extra. This is where I get in trouble because I just bake up the extra with, you know, cinnamon sugar on it and eat it. Though that's really fun for the kids. If you got some little ones around and, you know, you want to get them involved in the kitchen, have them, you know, roll these out and use your cookie cutters and make some cool designs. Kids love that stuff. So this is in here. You can do the, you know, the classic flute around the edges there. And you can, you know, repair too. If you get a little tear, just repair it. So just pinch it. And if you're fancy, be fancy. That's cool. I'm just trying to show you how to get it in there. So that's all pinched like that. And this is super important. If you're baking this with nothing in it, that's called blind baking. If you're blind baking, you have to put something in here or it'll pop up and it'll ruin everything. So you can prick it with a fork and that'll really help. That'll keep it from, you know, popping up. And this is if you just want to bake this without anything in it. And you can go back in and put in a custard or, you know, your pumpkin or whatever. But that's a good way to do it. But for super insurance, put these guys in here. Either the chains or the ceramic weights or this cool thing. And then you'll be guaranteed a really nice pie crust. I'm going to put this in the oven and then we're going to have pie. And there we go. Now on this one, you notice I didn't use the pie weights or the crust protectors because I didn't need to. But if I was going to now fill this maybe with a light, like a custard, and put it back in, I would want to use these pie crust shields so this didn't get too cooked. See what I mean? And I have to tell you guys, if you were here and you smelled this rich, buttery, lovely crust, you'd be wanting some pie. Everything that we had here today and everything that we're using, of course, is available at the West Seattle Thriftway. And you have any questions about anything, you can ask them because they know stuff there. So this recipe for I think, a really awesome pie crust is on westseattlethriftway.com, or you can get it on my website, thepantryraid.com. Now I'm going to roll these out, cut them with my cookie cutters, cover them with sugar, and eat them. See you later.